First of all, how's the U.S. economy doing, actually? How's the U.S. consumer holding up?
The U.S. consumer is doing fine. And so for the month of November 25 versus November 24, the amount of money are 70 million consumers who's pushed about $4.5 trillion plus in the economy every year. They pushed in about, for that month, about 4.5%. And so it was good. And around the Black Friday in the U.S. and the Cyber Monday and all the things they talk about, the spending was solid and good. And it's consistent with a growing economy. Our team has economy growing next year at 2.4%. So Candace and her team, who are the best in the business, that's their thing. But everything we see in the consumer side sets that up.
Is there a worry about affordability? So we hear it from certain pockets of consumers.
Yeah, and there is. And so this is why you have to sort of sort the aggregate economic impact of the consumer, our 70 million consumers spending, versus the different deciles of income and things like that. But if you sort it into thirds, and our institute that writes on this, the bottom third is growing. It's just growing at a slower rate than the middle third or the top third. And so that's what you hear about the K economy and things like that. The good news is with the unemployment rate at 4.4% or so, the new claims for unemployment is still at a very low rate nominally compared to where they compare it to 19, but the actual labor force is bigger. Those are all good things. So the people are working, they're getting paid, et cetera, but they are worried about prices and affordability. And I think that will dominate the conversation until it settles in.
Would a Fed cut help?
A Fed cut helps, and our team believes the Fed will cut next week. They came to it slowly because the inflation is still higher than the target rates that the Fed would have.
And sticky.
It's sticky, although right when they started raising rates, people told me it takes 5 years to actually squeeze out inflation, and people just aren't patient. And so it takes a while. So it's been coming down, and it's sticky is that it's not making the incremental progress a little different. But I think the belief is because the labor market's softer, they'll lower rates. That's how our team got there. But we get into the hand-to-hand combat of next month and next week. And the question really is longer term. Our team thinks the Fed gets down to about a 3% Fed funds rate. The 10-year rate sits in 4.25%, 4.5%. And that's a more normal rate structure for the United States. And I think that's not a bad thing. If you have a little higher inflation, a little faster growth, and a normal rate structure, then I think the incentives created by very low rates and stuff are out of the system, and I think people can then act on economic incentives.
And so what does that mean? That animal spirits are back in terms of also, IPOs and M&A, or does it take a while to settle? The market was also a little bit of a tissel because of the possible new Fed chair being Kevin Hassett.
Yeah, I think you've got to, I walked the trading floor this morning, you've got to sort out people who worry about 5 basis points on the 10-year versus people who worry about the next 50 years of the United States and a strategic view of the world. But if you look at companies, the activity kicked up after the new administration came in because there are a couple things. One was that you could get deals through the system, get them done, especially the United States, and that's important. So in our industry, which we are not allowed to make any acquisitions deposits by the law, it's been on books for 30 years. But in our industry, as an investment banking firm, our advice is you can get deals done, and you're seeing the time frame to approve a deal drop by half. And that's important because the idea of a deal being open for a year and a half, that's tough on the companies. And so that's good news. Then the second thing is settling out the major policies that you guys talk about every day on trade and immigration and tax. Those are settling in so people can see that. There's still work to do. But I think that means that companies can look and discount cash flows and make decisions. And then even a rate structure that's higher, as long as it's consistent, they can plan into it.
Brian, you know Kevin Hassett, and you've known him for quite some time. Yeah. What kind of chair do you think he'll be? Will he bow to the president's will?
Well, he's got to be nominated first, so let's let the president do his work and make his decision. But look, I think all the candidates are highly qualified. Our job is to work with them. I think the Fed, as an institution, has to be independent. There's no question that. I think the U.S. Fed is the example for the world of how to run a centralized Federal Reserve with independence. There are parts of it that there's a lot of commentary about the supervisory side and the reach and the activities. That's a separate question. But the Fed independence on monetary policy is key. I think Kevin and all his colleagues that are talked about would all believe that and understand that and drive that.
Brian, there's a lot of geopolitics today. Macron's in China. We have Vladimir Putin over with Prime Minister Modi in India. There's a lot going on with Ukraine. How do your clients work around this internationally. So you say, some of the tariffs have settled.
Yeah.
Do they worry about anything more for 2026, or do you think, again, they're ready to do deals?
Well, generally there's things that you look at, you say, I can have an impact on this or control it, or I can make a decision on it, and other ones you can't. And kinetic wars, war in Ukraine, getting the Middle East settled, Israel and the Gaza Strip settled down, the debates around Taiwan, all these things are on people's minds all the time. But the reality is there's not much I can do about it. Trade and tariff is different because that comes down to where they might locate supply chains, how it'll affect the cost of goods sold. And if you watch through the summer, it's become clear that there's sort of 10 to 15% increase is generally across the board result. That's helped businesses understand it better. And so I think that's been worked into their plans. And that's why you're seeing the relief come off from Liberation Day, where people were very confused, to now people have generally said the issues with China national security and stuff are unique. The issues of solving the Russia-Ukraine war are unique. But I don't think businesses sit there and say if that doesn't solve or does solve, if they're in very specific businesses, yes, but generally they're more worried about the ability to address markets and drive. And I think one of the things administrations worked on that gets lost in the percentages and count is the non-tariff barriers, and those are real barriers, both in the EU, frankly, through regulation and stuff, and in China and other places. And working on that is important for multinational companies, not only in the United States but around the world, because to get access to markets without having to change product is a big deal.
What's your take on the UK? So we had a budget. It didn't 100% go well for all companies, but I think there was a sigh of relief that at least we know what there is. JP Morgan's building, massive building in London. Are you committed to London?
We have 6,000 teammates. We just announced we're adding another 1,000 teammates in Belfast that will specialize in certain areas that we know we can get the talent there and help grow that economy. And so we're in London. We believe in London. We've been here for a long time. It's just part of who we are. I think the UK, London in particular, is a great place for multinational, international operations. So Bernie Menz that runs international is here, and I walked the trading floor today, and the Asian traders and the Middle Eastern traders and the EU traders, and everybody was up and working, and so I think it's a great thing. The key is for the policies to make sure that you distinguish between companies that are here because they're running international operations, the companies that are indigenous and working with the citizens of the UK, and make sure you get the regulation strategies right, because if you're a good place with the rule of law and the great city that London and the great country that UK is, there's plenty of upside in a world where there's not that many places where people can get young kids to go to work. We're just about young kids. Remember, we bring 2,000 kids in from school every year. They've got to want to work in the cities, and so New York and here and other places have a leg up if they just handle it right. So
what do you tell the Prime Minister?
I tell them to make sure the regulation's fair, and protect, but also materiality is the hardest thing for governments to understand. We have 6,000 teammates here. It's an incredibly important operation. It's 20% of our revenues. Our international business has grown nicely, but it's 20% of our revenue and things like that. We have hundreds of billions of dollars of capital to make sure things are all right. So if you make it hard to operate, that's when people start to make decisions, or make it uncomfortable for taxation for their workers. That's where they make decisions. Or expats coming in, that's where they make decisions. So I think our advice is be the best place for a non-UK based company to operate, and you'll get companies coming here. And it won't be that people leave. It's just where the next 500,000 people are going to go.
Brian, talk to me about your Investor Day. I mean, this was the first in 15 years. You set up some really ambitious targets. Are you happy with the way it went and the way it was received?
Yeah, it was great. It was a chance to show the hugely competitive advantage we have as a franchise, the moats we have on it, what all the technology spending done. We talked about what we do in AI that people are asking a lot about. We showed that it's actually not theoretical at Bank of America. The Erica will interface with 2 million customers today at Bank of America, which is an AI bot. So we gave that view, and we showed in each of the businesses how the competitive position they have. They're top businesses, number 1, number 2, number 3. They're growing organically, have been. And then the returns come back as the NII and the pricing on the fixed assets. So we talked about our net interest income growing at 5 to 7%. The industry's growing at 2 to 3%. That's really coming from the balance sheet, continue to reprice while we generate good organic growth. And it was good. And so we thought the returns would reach 16% return on tangible common equity, moving up to 18, and we last quarter we had 15, and we grew EPS I think 25-30%. It was a good quarter, and it's the team does a great job for us.
You know, I need to talk soccer or football.
Yeah.
I may get my nationality pulled away if I call it soccer, but are you now a football guy? I mean, you're sponsoring FIFA. The World Cup is coming to America.
Well, I have to say, as an American, I am a football person. It's just not the same football. Look, the draws tonight, we're very excited. We are a sponsor. We are the major financial sponsor for FIFA. Working with Johnny and the team for the last 3-4 years now on this. Our team has got a set of programs. Just today we announced that if you apply and get a credit card, you get a chance to go into lottery to buy tickets and things like that. And our clients are excited. The cities are hosting are excited. We're working in the cities. We're working with other colleagues, other companies to put fields in these cities, at FIFA and Visa and others. These are all important things because what we're trying to do is bring soccer into places and have it when the World Cup goes away, which will be a wonderful event, to have the FIFA World Cup continue through these fields.
Brian, the most difficult question, who do you support if not USA?
Well, we have to support the USA.
I know, but your second team, do you have a second team?
I've got too many colleagues around the world that have come after me for that.
You're going to get the calls, the hate calls.